All right, let's just jump right into it. We're going to tackle a question I think a lot of us have probably asked ourselves, maybe staring at a screen on a Friday afternoon. Why on earth do we work so much? And it all kicks off with this pretty wild prediction made almost 100 years ago. So get this, it's 1930. The world is in the grip of the Great Depression, and one of the most brilliant economists ever, John Maynard Keynes, predicts this incredible utopia. He figured his grandkids would have it so easy, their biggest problem in life will be figuring out what to do with all their free time.
Yeah, that clearly didn't pan out. I mean, most of us are working way closer to 40 hours a week, sometimes a lot more. So the big question we're digging into here is, what went wrong? How could Keynes's vision have been so spectacularly off the mark?
Now, to be fair to Keynes, he got one massive thing absolutely right: technology. He predicted it would just light a fire under our productivity, making it easier than ever to make everything we need. And you know what? On that front, he totally nailed it.
He thought our standard of living would be 4, maybe even 8 times higher. And incredibly, he was pretty much spot on. In the UK, for example, our real GDP per person has jumped over 5 times since he made that prediction. We have stuff today, smartphones, talking to anyone on the planet instantly, that would have been pure science fiction back then.
But here's where it gets weird. Here's the paradox. Even though we are fantastically wealthier and more productive, our average work hours in places like the US and the UK, they've barely moved since the 1980s. All the big drops in work time happened way before that.
And that's just looking at hours per worker. The total number of us in the workforce is actually shot way up, mostly because so many more women have joined. So as a whole society, we're actually putting in more total hours of work than we were back in the middle of the 20th century.
Okay, so if we could be working less, why aren't we? Well, the answer seems to be buried in some powerful economic forces that have kept us chained to our desks. So it all comes down to these two ideas that are basically fighting each other. When your pay goes up, you've got a choice. The income effect is that little voice in your head saying, "Sweet, I can earn what I need and take more time off." But then the substitution effect chimes in and says, "Hold on, taking a day off now costs you more in lost money. You should work more and cash in." So which voice do we listen to? Oh, we overwhelmingly listen to the second one. The substitution effect won hands down. Turns out, Keynes just really underestimated how much we'd love, well, stuff. The whole idea of a good life went way beyond just having food and a roof over your head. It started to include cars, vacations, smartphones, all the things we kind of see as normal now. As a society, we chose more things over more time.
But there's another theory, a much more provocative one. What if a huge chunk of the work we're doing doesn't actually create any real value at all?
This is an idea from the anthropologist David Graeber. And his argument was basically that as technology took over the important jobs, we didn't just kick back and relax. Nope. Instead, we invented millions of pointless corporate and admin jobs, pretty much just to keep people busy. We're talking about writing reports that no one ever reads, or sitting in meetings that go absolutely nowhere.
And look, this isn't some fringe idea. It really hits home for a lot of people. For example, in the Netherlands, a staggering 40% of workers say they don't find their job meaningful. A UK study got even more specific, finding that over half of the people in financial services felt their job made no meaningful contribution to the world. Wow. So why do these kinds of jobs even exist? Well, a big part of it is this old classic idea called Parkinson's law. It's simple. Work just expands to fill up whatever time you give it. If your boss gives you a whole week for a task that really only takes 3 hours, you'll find a way to make it stretch for the whole week. We've all been there.
And these kinds of inefficient habits stick around because for so many modern jobs, it's almost impossible to actually measure productivity. I mean, for a mechanic, it's easy, right? How many cars did you fix? But for an office worker, what's the real value of sending 6 emails and sitting through 5 meetings? It's anybody's guess.
Right. And when you can't measure what people are actually doing, you end up with a culture where just being present looks like performance. This leads to this idea of productivity theater, or ghost working, where people waste time just trying to look busy, even using things like mouse jigglers to keep their computers active. So, if the problem is that our work is just expanding to fill this 40-hour box, what if we just made the box smaller? And this is where the whole idea of the 4-day work week comes into play. The model that's getting the most traction is actually pretty elegant. It's called 100-80-100. It means you get 100% of your pay for working 80% of the hours,
but you commit to delivering 100% of the productivity.
And the results from the biggest trial so far, which was in the UK, were, honestly, they're pretty amazing. Company revenue didn't drop. In some cases, it went up. People were less likely to quit, they took fewer sick days, and maybe the biggest sign of all, 92% of the companies decided to just keep doing it permanently. But, and this is a big but, it's not some magic fix for everything. We've got to be realistic about the hurdles. For one, it could create this two-tiered society, right? Office workers get a 3-day weekend while essential workers don't. It also just doesn't work for every industry. And there's a real risk that if productivity does fall, it'll just push prices up. Plus, let's be honest, the companies trying this are already the most innovative ones, so there's a bit of bias in the studies.
So when you really step back and look at the whole picture, it seems like the biggest thing holding us back isn't the economy or the technology, it's just inertia. It's our cultural resistance to changing a system that we've all grown up with.
But it's so important to remember that we've made this kind of massive shift before. We went from these brutal 14-hour, 6-day weeks during the Industrial Revolution to the standard 9-to-5, 5-day week we have now. That was a radical, revolutionary change back then, and people fought it tooth and nail.
And this really is the core contradiction of our time. We have so much wealth and technology that, for the first time in human history, we don't have to be in a constant battle for survival. And yet, we still organize our entire society around a workday as if we were.
Ultimately, this whole thing boils down to a really fundamental choice about what we value. And as things like AI and automation get even better, we're going to have to face this question head on. What do we really want more of? The things we can buy, or the time we get to live our lives? The answer to that is going to define the future of work for all of us.